Hello everyone and welcome back to the Hearthstone Grand Prix here at Dreamhack Valencia. I am Raven and joining me to cast the next game is going to be Frodan and Nimsh. So we have the next game coming up, which is going to be a bit of a crazy one with Superjj in, which is known at the moment for just dominating the tournament scene. Any tournament he turns up at might not necessarily win, but always goes deep.
Yeah, definitely. JJ is one of the top contenders at the moment, and he is 2-0, I believe. And also, after his game, I've seen him analyzing the games with Stansivka. Like, basically what they do, they record the game that they play, and then after the game, they sit down and they analyze it to see what has gone wrong or what has gone good.
Yeah, JJ, I think, is one of the best players to break out really towards the end of 2015. I think people really had him on his radar already as a rogue specialist, and then when he started competing in events, people realized that he was one of those players that if you do give him chances, he will impress more often than not. And very few players have that to their name. They have a few good events. Maybe they made a deep run. Maybe they do have some good reputation for ladder finishes. JJ has all of that. He has consistent ladder finishes, and he's also placing or winning a lot of events. Just in the past 7 or 8 months alone, I think JJ might be even the most winning player, along with players like Tyson, Hoy, and Sixo. Some of these guys are like really good.
Yeah, I think as well in Swiss specifically, he just seems to excel. Like, he's one of the players who can go through, a ton of matches in a day and still come out on top. The guys who've been interviewed earlier were talking about fatigue setting in this type of format, but it just doesn't seem to bother JJ. He just seems to excel and continue to perform. So I expect a lot of good things from him in this game. He is against a relatively unknown player, though. So
We should feature them once in a while. I think while we try to tackle some of the more known players or semi-known players, we do want to remind people that it is open for people to register, and a lot of people from the local Spanish community are playing here. So it's cool to see Safo here to try to see if he can take down one of the established names, because that's ultimately what Hearthstone becomes accessible, that it is a fighting chance. Like, it's not 0% chance, not even 10%. It's much higher than that. As long as he's a capable player, we do see sometimes the occasional upset.
Yeah, I think the mindset is as well, Nimsh, that you, as a player in his position, you've got like everything to gain. Like, if you take down JJ, especially on stream in a big tournament like this, like it's definitely going to boost your career if it's something you actually want to take forward and take seriously.
Exactly. Also, a lot of people don't realize that those local players, they just sometimes don't have the money and are not able to travel to those big events. So when a big event happens in your backyard, you just go there and shine and show your skills. So it's really possible that we have a lot of great players here that just didn't have an opportunity to play in any other tournaments before.
I think, well, I mean, it could be that. I mean, I'm not refuting that, but I think a lot of times it's people who just really they really enjoy Hearthstone. They like watching it. They like playing it. Events happening relatively local. Maybe it's on the other side of the country, but whatever. You make the trip out. You actually do pretty well, and you're like, well, you know what? Maybe I will try to pursue it a little bit more seriously in that case. That could be the scenario here. Maybe he's doing well right now. He's 2-0, and if he continues to do well, maybe he does have that inspiration to keep going further. Until then, it's kind of a casual experience that he spends a decent amount of hours per week, but it's not something he's completely serious about. And that's where these events are really supposed to help you feel that. You're supposed to try to get that thrill of competing, because it is very fun to come participate in these tournaments. I highly recommend any person who's watching right now, if there's a local event for Hearthstone, especially a Dreamhack, go to it, and you can really experience how fun it is.
Yeah, even just meeting a lot of the players that you wouldn't normally speak to and catching up with them, getting their thoughts on the game, because as you were mentioning about going over matches afterwards, if you see a lot of the best players, win or lose, go back over the game straight away. Even if they win in even a dominating performance, they're like, I want to go over it and see what exactly improvements I can make. But overall, from what we've seen, I know you've been talking to a lot of players, Nimsh. Is there any sort of like deck choices or lineup choices that have really surprised you so far?
Well, definitely we were expecting the big four, which is the Dragon Warrior, Token Druid, and the Zoo, and the last being the Shaman. But a lot of players, they actually brought different lineups. And I was actually talking to JJ this morning, and he himself is the one who is bringing the specific lineups, something different. He doesn't want to play the coin flips all the time. He's just looking for a small edge that he can get from the matchups that were not tested. Like we've seen him bring a Priest for DreamHack Summer, and he had good success with it.
That was awesome.
So amazing.
The only Priest player in the top 16.
Exactly. I think this time he's not bringing the Priest, but he again has some surprises for us.
Yeah, I have to anticipate Rogue being in there. I think JJ is a Rogue player through and through, for better or for worse. And these days, Rogue seems to be in a really interesting spot in the metagame where I feel like people have maybe forgotten about the Rogue class because they just assume that it's Priest and Paladin tier. But, I mean, if you take out its weakest matchups like Shaman, you realize that a lot of decks have been slowing down. I mean, Dragon Warrior, for example, slowed down significantly. They used to play Inner Rage and N'Zoth's First Mate as some of their early game choices. Now they started adding, like, late game Dragons. Some put Onyxia, some put Deathwing, some put, like Ragnaros and Malkarok. That all of a sudden gives Rogue some time. Maybe the matchups aren't so bad. So if people choose to bring Rogue, we saw Zyrez choose to try to bring it. Didn't work out for him, but he didn't really get a chance to to really throw much into it. I think Rogue does have its pocket in the metagame. I don't think it's super amazing, but I think it's definitely got some legitimacy to it.
I still think like the biggest surprise of this tournament in a way is how popular Freeze Mage is. A lot of people actually brought Freeze Mage where Tempo Mage was the one super popular and hyped by RDU, using it to win the Dreamhack Summer, and also at the Hearthstone Festival, Maverick was using Tempo Mage himself. So a deck really strong, but then Freeze Mage, it's here and it's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, Freeze Mage in Last Year's Standing makes a lot of sense. In Last Year's Standing, you specifically can pick the right time to counter certain things. So with a very polarizing deck like Freeze Mage, it actually excels a lot because in Last Year's Standing, the number one thing you have to make sure to do is that if you counter pick, it wins. If you pick a 50-50 matchup, you're often in a position where you lose more often because your opponent will be able to counter pick you with their better matchups. So that's why Control Warrior or Defensive Warriors in general, that's why you see, Aggro Shamans and Freeze Mage, because they do tend to have some polarizing matchups in the past, prior to Whispers of the Old Gods. Nowadays, with Whispers of the Old Gods, things have gotten a little bit more towards the 50 Finish Center. When you consider a favored matchup, it's actually 55-45. It's not nearly as dramatic swing as it used to be. Yeah. Partially thanks to Conquest, but also partially, of course, design. Yeah,
it's one of the reasons as well, like you said about Freeze Mage, where it's not often you'll see someone lock in Freeze Mage game 1, right? It's like a
It's risky.
Yeah.
It's risky. But then some people can prey on
that.
that.
That's true.
They're like, well, maybe my lineup's really bad against this, and if I know he's not going to start Freeze Mage, I can really pin him on 2 of these other decks. I can really try to get that game 1 win. Because another thing about Last Year's Standings, if you get that first game of the series win, you're at a significant advantage because then, assuming you go for the counter pick web, you have the final say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting as well to see that players take mainly 2 different approaches to tournaments like this. With quite a large field, they either try and go with the strongest decks, as we heard like Green Cheap and Impact talk about. Or go for something to try and counter, something like Freeze Mage. So, they had some quite strong feelings, I believe, on they think you just bring the best decks and that's the way to go into, like, especially Swiss with playing so many matchups. But I definitely think there's room for some, interesting choices to try and catch out your opponents.
Definitely. And bring some new decks as well, because we've seen the Shaman from Tars being the Concede Shaman, and also some...
Concede Shaman.
Well, it makes you concede, right? It really rarely kills you with damage.
I feel like when we say concede deck, we just have a lack of originality for creating an actual proper title. It's a pretty cool. I like to call it Wall Shaman because you create this ancestral spirit wall taunt that they can't get past. But I mean, I don't know. We'll expect to see some of that. Instead, we have our series starting, and
we're going into the first game, so you can take it away, guys. Enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Raven. Safo on Team Broken JPEG up against Superjj on Team Complexity.
I like the fact that Safo,
it's pretty awesome that he's sponsored by such a really popular.
It's really popular
brand.
Definitely.
I see that all the time whenever I'm trying to load internet overseas.
I would like to see Safo
specifically from the hotel.
Definitely, yeah. It does show up a lot of times. But I would like to see Safo in the future drop to 20, like JJ. He was Superjj 102, and he grown up. He doesn't use the number now.
Yeah, it could be the fact that he is 20. Maybe. Well, I was thinking his birthday, but I don't think you're born on February 0th.
Probably
that would be really impressive. And very special.
We don't know the bans yet, but we know the matchup, which is Cthulhu Druid from JJ. So a deck that we didn't talk about much, but it's still in the metagame. It still exists versus the Tempo Mage.
Yeah, Cthulhu Druid is also a very interesting spot. People have been looking at Yogg Druid to be one of the better variants of Druid these days, but Cthulhu Druid still very much has powerful matchups, specifically against Hunter. I think that's like the best counter to Hunter outside of Aggro Shaman. And it's peculiar that JJ choose to broad it, but once again, trying to adapt to the metagame. And when you ban Shaman and one of the more problematic decks in the metagame, it just opens up more flexibility for you to have specific counters to stuff. Maybe he's trying to kill warriors, maybe he's trying to kill the Zoo Warlocks. And Cthulhu Druid is just not bad. It's definitely one of those decks that just has its own agenda, and if you can't adapt to it in time, it just rolls you over.
Yeah, it's definitely a very strong deck with big taunts, and we've seen it DreamHack Summer. Both Orange and Hoy were playing the deck, and they got really far in the tournament.
No, it's certainly not weak. It just doesn't seem wildly impressive. It doesn't necessarily play onto the board nearly as good as some other decks that are able to ramp out. Like Yagdru can still do this, but they can still ramp out minions very fast, but they also have even more explosion because they have Savage Roar versus Cthulhu Druid. Just feels like if you can't fight back onto the board, you have to fight on the board very honestly, just through minions like 4/10s and
just drop the biggest
4/6s,
minions you have. So here, an awkward turn for JJ because you have 4 mana, you can go up to 6, which doesn't help you do anything really. Can you?
You could innervate Nourish for 2 extra crystals and play the Disciple of Cthulhu, but that doesn't really allow you to play anything on 7 mana, and it doesn't even kill off the Water Elemental. So it is pretty awkward.
So you can also like...
I mean, I don't mind killing the Water Elemental either.
With the Innervate, you probably don't want to use Innervate here. You want to keep Innervate for Ragnaros.
Oh yeah, certainly, because you're going to be able to draw cards with Nourish, but I think like the most thing that you have to really worry about is with Tempo Mage is leveraging minions onto the board. Because from this position, that's when they play Flame Waker and they use like mirror images. You can't really get past it, and then all of a sudden minions are hitting you a lot.
But then the coin is actually not in the hand, so this hand is not that good for Tempo Mage yet.
Yeah, it's not. And Tempo Mage, you know, I feel like we shouldn't really call it Tempo Mage nearly as much. I just feel like it's more of a mid-range mage, and I know this debate has been going on for a long time within our community about proper nomenclature of decks. But it's true. I've seen a lot of Tempo Mages. A lot of times the correct play early on is to leverage your hero power a lot, save your cards, and then go for this immediate...
Big tempo play?
Yeah, big tempo swing. But it doesn't mean your deck is entirely dependent on that. I mean, sometimes you do curve. I've seen like some players pass from turns 2 to 4 with hero power, and they have Mana Worm and Flame Waker and Cult Sorcerers and all these other cards that you want to be playing out on curve. It's surprising.
Yeah, because you can really swing the game there. But still, I guess like we don't have the better name for it for now.
Yeah, we do. We have plenty of names for it.
Would you like to change it right now on this cast into mid-range mage?
Yeah. Be the agent of change you want to see, or whatever Gandhi said.
Tempo mid-range mage? Anyways.
Innervate Ragnaros, extremely powerful if your opponent can't deal with it. Sniping the Water Elemental would be also good, reducing his ability to knock it down. So how do you actually kill it now without Fireball? I guess you just have to let it live. Oh my goodness.
You have 7 damage with... No, actually, no, you don't.
Yeah, you only can do 6 damage to Ragnaros right now. I mean, the good news is the Clamber Axie Weaver is frozen, so if you play smaller minions, Ragnaros might be able to hit one of them. I mean, Mana Worm and Azure Drake makes sense there on paper. It doesn't feel like Sorcerer's Apprentice does anything incredibly well. All right, looks like he's going to just start hammering it away.
It's another small minion on board, but you're not in the best spot. I would probably like Azure Drake a bit more here.
Yeah, I think the problem with this play is that if your opponent clears it, you're still stuck in the exact same position. You just have to play Azure Drake next turn and then use Arcane Blast, which is okay again, but then you know you're losing out on your ability to draw deeper into your deck ultimately and control the board.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like Azure Drake, because just being stuck with 2 in your hand, it's not the best.
It's just so clunky mana-wise. I don't think it's necessarily that bad of a spot if one of these minions did end up living, but it looks like it's okay. Because, you know, either one, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice or the Mana Worm, it's going to get some work done.
But still, good situation for JJ anyway, with 2 big Klaxis. And Klaxi is an interesting card overall, because a lot of people started cutting it from the Cthulhu Druid, but JJ is playing 2 of them.
Yeah, cutting it in general seemed to be, you know, it just allowed you to do more powerful stuff instead of just like the normal minion pressure. You know, sometimes you're just stuck with 4/10s, but you need taunts or you need burst.
Yeah, and like people play Fandral, I think, in some versions. And then you just don't have the space for like... Yeah, Fandral is...
How do you not play Fandral? He's like one of the... Okay, he's one of the 5 best cards in the expansion. You have to
I do agree, yeah.
There's no way. Like him, along with Call of the Wild, N'Zoth. Cthulhu is really strong, but like definitely Fandrill's up there in terms of game defining cards. We're just like, well, if I don't kill this card, I just lose. Speaking of which, here's one of them. Cthulhu comes down with a chance for lethal, and there it is.
Yeah, nice lethal, and there was also innervate with the hero power, so JJ takes the first game with the Cthulhu Druid.
Oh, that's right, he did innervate, so he had guarantee lethal. So job well done there from JJ, taking down the Tempo Mage, which was never really able to establish the board control. I do think that JJ just curved out pretty well there, but one thing to keep in mind is that this is what Tempo Mage can struggle with, and that's why a lot of players are always on the fence about it, because your win rate starting with Mana Worm on turn 1 is so dramatically different from it not having it on turn 1.
Well, a lot of people actually like even keep the Mana Worm in their hand. Like if you're able to go with Mana Worm, yes, but then versus Warrior sometimes you just keep it in your hand.
Right, and you don't play it.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying some people just keep it in their hand in the mulligans. I'm like, yeah.
Well, yeah,
good old
they do.
No, it's true. If you suspect sometimes that your Mana Worm dies, you can even not play it on turn 1 and then choose to play it behind a mirror image or with a second minion, so that way you're always 1 minion ahead and getting the damage in.
Exactly, or if your opponent has removal, he only can remove 1 of the cards you have on board.
Right.
But yeah, definitely Mana Worm can bring tempo, but that deck is dead, and we are back to the Zoo versus Cotton Druid.
Yeah. Now, the difficulties with Druid fighting Zoo still hasn't really changed much. You look at the fact that Zoo can build onto the board very quickly, and Druid doesn't have very clean AoE. Swipe doesn't exactly interact very well with Imp Gang Boss unless you're directly hitting it, but say you have multiple of them, or even Possessed Villager doesn't actually clear anything.
Well,
so
Swipe is still alright, because if you're able to clear the board, then Forbidden Rituals hitting the board, and then Swipe is great to just wrap it up. So go.
But I mean, it's not always that convenient. Like on paper, yeah, it makes a lot of sense if you're able to save Forbidden Rituals for it. But when Darkshire Councilmans come out, Swipe doesn't exactly cleanly remove that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of 2 health minions, the Dark Peddlers, the Knife Jugglers. And it's just, it's never guaranteed to be super clean. That's why.
True.
That's why I'm like, Swipe's like good, but it's not amazing. Like I wouldn't want to always have to be in a position to keep Swipe off the opening hand. I'd rather have minions.
I would love to have an innervate in the opening hands whenever I'm playing versus Zoo, but still,
with minions to play.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you are possibly drawing the minions, but anyway, this situation is really good for JJ. Just looking at the hands, because double Forbidden Ritual and double Swipe, which means JJ has a great answer to this.
Ooh, yeah. So he chooses to go for Forbidden Ritual. If he misses, oh, okay. All right. So he goes for the trade. He hedges his bets around like a coin swipe so that his opponent gets a full clear. Claxy Amberweaver comes into the hand here. Also a viable choice, because your opponent would have to buff and clear.
Yeah, but it's not going to be a 4-10, only 4-5.
It is what it is, though.
Also, like, you could possibly use Wrath to draw a card, but using the first swipe to clear is pretty clean and good as well.
It's interesting. I think when you see your opponent Forbidden Ritual, you kind of put them on the fact that their hand must be slightly awkward for the mana usage. They weren't able to pair like a 1 mana or 2 mana. Obviously, the optimal plays usually end up becoming Imp Gang Boss or Darkshire Councilman. He didn't really have that, so he maybe says either one, he has a really clunky hand with a lot of 4 drops. I have to be mindful of that. Dark Iron Dwarf.
Defender of Argus.
Or he's holding Power of Overwhelmings.
Yeah.
So I have to be really careful about that. If I play Claxy Amberweaver, you can just use one of those 1/1 tokens to trade it very efficiently.
Exactly.
So that's a pretty good read from JJ.
The swipe was definitely good there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a clear, but then second swipe can still be okay here.
Dark Urkoa.
So you can swipe the 2/4 and you almost clear the board.
Shout out to the Voidwalker, by the way, representing the Captain Pride Rainbow very well.
It has
not disappointed at all.
Does it have like a good new animation or not?
Yeah.
It has a new one, right?
You know, the Voidwalker is the closest thing we have to like a hollow card in Hearthstone. Remember like when you open up those golden Pokemon cards or something, you always get to see the hollow foil on it. It was so cool. At least, no, it is. It is so cool.
It's like
I'll
golden.
say it.
Like golden cards in Hearthstone.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like back then we couldn't really have golden animations on cards, so
True.
they had some like just pretty foil on it.
On the normal cards, at least, it's impossible. But yeah, Arakoa is there as well, and JJ is just slowly building up. This buffed Cthulhu as well, so Veclor will be able to double up. The Klaxi also will have 10 health.
He's challenging. Sorry, the Dark Arakoa is just challenged on board through 7 power right there. If there's a single buff, then one of these minions will survive. In this case, the worst case scenario, Direwolf Alpha is very, very good against the 5/7. So
He's thinking about a possible Innervate Rav or Innervate Hero Power, but then on the next turn he will be able to Innervate Azure and Klaxi at the same time, or maybe even speed up Cthulhu if he gets it.
yeah, I think you're somewhat happy if your opponent trades your entire board into it. And if you innervate Wrath, I want Wrath to draw a card because of how your hand needs to continue to pound on yourself. Like,
Yeah.
if you Wrath for 3 and you kill like Defender of Argus, then you're essentially just making it like still killable because he has to do +2 damage, which Zoo can do very easily.
Yeah, it should be easy overall, and it's not easy to draw cards in Cthulhu Druid as well.
Yeah. Yeah, your card draw source, especially because you only run 1 Nourish on average.
Probably, yeah.
It's,
One Nourish, maybe double Azure Drake.
Yeah, it's unlikely you can draw very effectively to Cthulhu, which ultimately is one of your main win conditions against this deck.
Because what can Zoo do against a Cthulhu? Like, really? Cthulhu drops in, clears the board, and it just stays there.
It can Void Walker Taunt and Pray. That's pretty much what it usually does. But, I mean, assuming the game goes that long, we're still several turns away from seeing Cthulhu being played.
Well, double swipe was used, so it might be troublesome to clear this board if there is no Raven Idol in the deck, and he might not be playing the Fandral Raven Idol version.
Yeah, imagine if he still had a swipe and Azure Drake just comes in here, barreling its Blue Giant's claws, and you innervate that swipe. That would have been game over.
Yeah, that definitely, but no swipe here, so you can still go for Azure Drake to see what you draw, and then innervate Klaxi to the board, but
I like killing the Direwolf Alpha as well. So I like Klaxi, Ember Weaver, Twilight Elder, Innervate, Wrath, because the Direwolf with 5 minions on the board next to it, that's just so threatening, and it almost makes your 4/10 half that.
Yeah.
It actually might as well be a 4/5 because the way trades go into it.
that's probably the best, like taking 4 power off the board and also just protecting your part of the board.
Right.
But on the other hand, you would kind of like your opponent to attack into your minions instead of going for face because you have no taunt, you have nothing else.
Sure. Young Priestess or Archon Squire choose to go for Mortal Coil. I guess he just wants to cycle. I'm definitely okay with any of those choices because he's just going to play the board control game.
I'm not sure I like it actually. From Zul perspective, I don't know which version is he playing. Is he playing Doomguard or Leroy? But I would definitely like to see him going for face and not trading it. It doesn't matter how big Cthulhu is. Like when Cthulhu is being played, you lose anyway probably, and it's still like some time till Cthulhu is being playable because we are at turn 8.
Okay. That's a pretty fair argument. I think there's not much that Drew can do without swipes. I mean, that's one of the downsides of using swipes pretty early. One of the downsides of JJ trading swipe for just a Forbidden Ritual. However, you can't really foresee that the board would expand in this fashion. So JJ chooses to clear up 3 minions here. He's got 5 power plus 4, so that's 9. So another power overwhelming will end it here for Safo. He's looking for just now 2 more damage.
Yeah, so Defender, Doomguard is enough.
Yep, so ends up being able to push out. He's got plenty of damage.
Yeah.
Because he could squeeze it all in mana-wise. But this is kind of the expected result. This is why the counter was available to him. And JJ does have a couple of decks stored up. That Rogue most likely can come in here and take down the Zoo, but we'll see.
Yeah, Rogue versus Zoo is awkward. And also there's the Warlock from Superjj that we don't exactly know what it is. I have some assumptions, but I talked to him before, so I don't want to spoil anything. But overall, well, you cannot ban Shaman and Zoo, and Zoo is one of the strongest decks right now. And I think most of the players in this tournament, they are actually banning Zoo and trying to counter Shaman instead.
So I think if you ban Shaman, it kind of heavily leans towards being a Reno Warlock from JJ. I think that's probably likely, and if that's the case, then you almost certainly have to pick Rogue because Reno Warlock versus Zoo has definitely gone very much in the Zoo favor recently. It definitely feels like with all this AoE available, like Demon Wrath and Hellfire and Shadow Flame, you should be able to handle Zoo's pressure, but that doesn't always be the case.
Yeah, like most of the time, Zoo can actually like build up a board in the early game, deal some damage to you, and then you have to spend your resources on like just trading this board, and then they have you in range, and if you don't have Reno Jackson, you just lose there.
By the way, I feel like Flame Imp and Voidwalker should switch art because Voidwalker's the one with the big muscles, and Flame Imp kind of looks like, you know, one of those
small imps.
He definitely looks underdeveloped. Like he doesn't go to the gym. You know, he kind of looks like one of us Hearthstone players. You know, Voidwalker is kind of like the Call of Duty, MLG, even the CS:GO guys like Fukazoid, and then we have
like honestly,
the Hearthstone players like the Flame Imps, the Possessed Villagers. That's like more of us.
I would like to take you to the WoW TCG lands. In WoW TCG, Voidwalker, with that art, had 3/5 stats. And
really? Was it 1 mana?
No, for free mana. But it was like a 3/5.
Oh, 3/5 taunt for 3?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was a really good taunt.
That's really good.
And it actually like looks like a Voidwalker then. Like you see it's being beefed, right?
Yeah. I mean, he probably skips leg day, but Voidwalker still is very much jacked.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And this matchup is... it depends. Like whoever has the coin, definitely backstab plus SI7 can give favor to Rogue. Fan of Knives also being a good response to the Ritual. But we'll see. What do you think about Zoo's situation here?
Well, I mean, normally Zoo just tries to follow along its curve. The disruption really comes in through this. Like, why is Rogue playing an Argent Squire? You know, Argent Squire already starts putting alarm bells up. Like, I know that there was, I think you were actually the one telling me that there was like versions of Tempo Rogue coming out there on the ladder. I think China was starting to put it out to push to Legend. And you play some of those classic cards like Defiance Ringleader, Argent Commander, Argent Squire with Cold Bloods. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think one Argent Squire might just be to help him handle the early game.
Definitely. So it's still possible. It's just a normal Leroy version of the deck with just one Argent Squire.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a good tech because Argent Squire versus many decks is just really good to handle the early game.
Yeah.
Especially because you still run Cold Bloods in the Leroy version. Might be just better than a second ship or whatever.
Yeah, precisely.
So it seems like JJ is actually being able to take care of this board and be on board himself, which is great for him. And if Zoo is behind, it will be really hard for Zoo to come back versus Rogue.
Yeah, I really like this diligence to not, or sorry, discipline to not use Fan of Knives. Fan of Knives would have guaranteed a board clear, but Fan of Knives is one of your best cards against Zoo. Not just Forbidden Ritual, but all those small, pesky little 2/2 minions that you can also snipe. Direwolf Alpha, Dark Peddler, Knife Juggler, if you have Spell Power on the board.
And he has Spell Power on board. He also has Azure Drake, just in case.
Yeah.
But now I think it's a... Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes,
now we're talking.
Please. I mean, now he doesn't have to choose development of minion. He can now play Azure Drake, and he can... clear the board, which is just really strong. Not to mention that he also cycles, and also that he gets some initiative by pushing damage onto the board. You can just see Safo's not looking very comfortable right now.
There is Doomguard.
Okay, that was a good draw.
Yeah.
If he didn't have that and he's just playing like Darkshire Councilman and Life Tap,
that would be so sad.
He's in huge trouble.
So you play Doomguard and you probably have to trade into the 4/4.
Yeah,
this is not something you really want to do overall because he knows that he's losing this matchup. Like versus Rogue, you want to go face with Zoo and just catch the Rogue without health and finish it off with like power overwhelming attacks. But right now he's out of cards. And this is really easy to kill as well.
Yeah. You can just play... oh, he's going for the 6/6 Van Cleave. Okay. I wasn't sure if he wanted to kill the Doomguard and just play Van Cleave as a 4/4, but using his mana efficiently, putting some pressure onto the board here. I wonder if he's going to attack with the Blade at all.
Yeah, he's going full aggressive here, especially because he's seen Defender of Argus being discarded.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Doomguard cannot really contest the 6/6.
It kind of can. Not really.
No.
I guess, I mean, it puts it down to 6/1, but the fact that...
you have to have a Mortal
Blood
Coil
Mage,
to be actually able to kill it on the turn you play Doomguard.
Yeah, if only you were able to flip that Doomguard somehow with the Crazed Alchemist, but it wouldn't work that way even if you had the mana. So, does he life tap here for a better answer? Oh, goodness.
He's just trying to develop the board.
Oh, goodness.
Basically, what Safo tries to do is trying to say to JJ, hey, JJ, can you please attack into my minions?
Man.
But JJ knows better.
Yeah.
Well, he can actually still attack. No, but he will lose the Edwin to Doomguard. This is 7, 10 damage. He's almost there.
Yeah, I'm trying 17, 20. Yeah, put him down to 20. Or so put him down to 1, right? Do you want to?
You probably don't have to do it this turn.
But you have so many draws to finish the game after that point.
I kind of like attacking with the weapon into the 2/2, going face for 7, and then just weapon up. Because then you like force your opponent to go with the Doomguard and the Councilman into Edwin. And your opponent will be at what, like 7 minus, that's 14.
I really like playing Leroy, man. Just, what you could do is you could trade the Thanos into one of the 1/1s. Yeah, and then make it awkward. Oh my goodness, backstab, just to make it more complicated. And then you can just push all this damage, put him down to 2. I like that a lot too.
That's good, that's good. I like it as well. Basically just say to Warlock that you will not life tap. You have Doomguard in your hand, I know, and Doomguard is not really doing much. Like if you want to kill Edwin, you need to run 2 minions into it. You will not be able to kill Leroy.
Wow, are you serious? Defender Vargas. I mean, you can't tap, but that was the only card that could save him.
Yeah, that actually solves this a bit because you just kill Leroy with the 2/2 and you go face for 6.
Oh wait, I guess you just still play Doomguard. I apologize. I forgot that he had the 1/1.
No, you don't have to play the Doomguard. Like you can play Defender Vargas here and like round the 2/2 into Leroy and then go face with another one, or just trade as well. Yeah, that's fine. Just in case of Sap. Because it got buffed like by Defender Vargas and by the fact that Defender Vargas was played.
Yeah, I was trying to weigh if
he needs
because it couldn't kill the 2/2. Yeah, the 6/2. Yeah.
He needs a Void Walker now.
Yeah, he needs something to defend it, but it can't. Just, I mean, Rogue didn't even necessarily need the minion, just needed to pray that Zoo didn't have a taunt. So.
Yeah.
Yep, that wraps up the game. So JJ takes the lead of, again, a crucial game, but so far everything's going according to the plan. Now, Safo has only 1 deck left. It's a Warrior.
And I have to assume this is probably the Dragon Warrior, but other Warriors are also playable.
This is pretty good position here for JJ because he's got 2 chances. And Dragon Warrior against Rogue, at least we were actually talking about this before the series started. On paper earlier, it should actually be favored, but, well, I mentioned that they took out aggressive cards like the Zos First Mate to really get that board control going.
So this is, I still believe,
could be aggressive.
The dragon version with the Nizov and Fiery Dragon. So like a very aggressive Dragon Warrior, which means that it favors Safo. Because
it tends to, yes. But there's Argent Squire, so I
wasn't something.
Sure.
But Argent Squire is not heal, it's not taunt. It's something to fight in the early game, but basically if Dragon Warrior just goes face, it's really favored then.
Rogue has the coin, has also Edwin, and with coin Edwin, that means precisely that you're stuck with removing it through execute if he's able to build up big enough. Fairy Dragon, one of the most problematic cards, but the prep fan.
There is no backstab though.
Man.
No SI, but still.
I don't think he wants to go all in on this Van Cleave. And definitely not now that he drew his Gadget Auctioneer. Another way to kill Dragon Warrior is just conceal the Auctioneer. They can't really do much with those mid-range minions.
It's one of the ways, but still, like, if you conceal your Gadget Son and I just go face with my stuff, that's
I know you're right, but I mean that's like assuming that when you conceal Gadget Stand, you're not at 4 HP and there's 10 power on the board. I'm saying when you get a clean board and all that's left on the board is a concealed Gadget Stand and you're at like
it's almost never
18
bad.
health.
It's almost never bad to just conceal your Gadget Son. Yeah.
Yeah, you almost like win every time from that position, but it's kind of hard to get to that spot. You don't always guarantee it.
There's no execute for Edwin, so he just has to tank this damage.
Yeah.
And conceal. Yeah, conceal is interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, he has Gadget Stand with the coin now, so that's really nice. And he's got initiative for now. I mean, that's where Fire War X comes in, though.
Blood to Eaker is a really good pickup here as well because you can go for frauding Blood to Eaker and kill it with a weapon. Is there an alternative play maybe?
If you want to be mana efficient, you slam.
Yeah, you can slam as well to draw the card.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing I can agree on, I don't like Azure Drake here. So I think frothing slam because you want to get that extra buff on it, perhaps. It's hard to say. The 2/2 does become slightly relevant too because you're coming up on a turns where you start to want to pressure your opponent out of the game. Okay. Now that you have Execute, Blood Taker Keep was very good. Helps you squeeze in stuff.
True. It's only 2 mana. And there's the second coin, so we can actually go for Gadgetson,
Yep.
coin, conceal.
Well, first you conceal, and then you
stuff like that,
you
yeah.
eviscerate that Frothing Berserker. Everything kind of lined up perfectly here. 2 conceals.
Yeah,
Dang.
so this is really good opening from JJ overall. The possibility of the Edwin that was able to keep that warrior in check, then Pillager, and now just clearing the board with the Gadgetson is awesome.
You know something amazing too is that Argent Squire is a very good combo enabler if you didn't have Deadly Poison or Sap targets. So that's something else I was thinking too. Just drop Argent Squire for those combos early game too.
I wonder if he's playing 1 or 2.
Has to be 1. If you
Probably.
have 2, what are you actually cutting out of your deck?
Farseers?
You have no Farseers in your deck? I mean, maybe if you cut Shaman and you're expecting a lot slower meta, you can get away with no Farseers. But that was in a N'Zoth Paladin, N'Zoth Priest meta with Reno Warlock. You can cut Farseers then, but I don't know these days.
Well, I've seen people play just shifts instead of Farseers. Like just play Zaril instead of Zaril and Violet Teacher. But we've seen Violet Teacher for JJ.
Do you not play Finley here? I actually do feel like Finley still is relevant. If you're in a game plan of I'm going to armor up to stay alive and win this game, you're in a really bad spot. Plus the 1/3 isn't irrelevant.
Yeah, you probably want to have Steady Shot. Like Life Tap may be too dangerous.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think card draw is your weakness right now. I think you're just worried about dying.
Yeah, your health.
Is that death? 4, 8, 12, 15.
That's a lot of damage there.
Yeah, he's pretty close. If he draws another Eviscerate off this Cold Blood, I think that should be it. I mean, he's going to conceal again.
And there's no answer.
Yeah.
Literally no answer to be able to stop that.
Hey, you can even squeeze in the Squire.
The only answer, I believe, is the Twilight Guardian, but there's
yeah, usually on 8 mana you have that Ragnaros ability to go for that 50-50, but in this position, pretty bad spot to be in. Yeah, I don't mind dropping that little Squire. Because then that means your hero power plus the SI would also be lethal for the following turn too.
Yep.
I'm completely okay with this.
JJ is so patient, by the way. Just look at his face. He's like, yeah, I got this. This is easy game.
Ooh, and that's lethal.
Yep. Found it.
Job well done. The Miracle Rogue, once again, coming in the pocket, where I don't think Rogue's really a bad choice for the metagame right now. I think Rogue actually seems to be a pretty good choice if you choose to ban Shaman.
Well, you know, Rogue is this class that at some point people forget about it, and then it just comes out of the shadows and takes the tournament. And we had that at Insomnia. Raven is with us. Do you remember Insomnia? We had
I'm really glad you didn't go for a Shadow Strike pun there.
I do remember Insomnia, yeah, but that set overall was just crazy. Just JJ again showing dominance, and then with his signature class as well. It's just not even unexpected at this point, let's be honest. It's
already 2 things that are slightly unusual for what we see. I think a lot of people expect the core 4, so to speak, with Shaman, an aggressive Shaman of some sort, Zoo Warlock, Dragon Warrior, and then, of course, the Yogg Druid. But he's already mixing it with Cthulhu Druid. JJ's actually joined with us on the – what is this?
How are you doing, man?
The chairs.
The
we don't have a
chairs.
couch. We don't have a desk. The casting area.
So, JJ, you have 3 hosts interview you. How do you feel about it?
What, 3 hosts interviewing? Oh.
Oh, it was like
Yeah, definitely not 3 analysts. Let's make that
How are you
clear.
doing, guys? You having a good day?
Oh,
Doing
we're
good.
being interviewed.
Doing good.
Okay.
oh, you're interviewing us not right now?
No.
Great.
You want to interview us, JJ?
I mean, we are all. Come on. Okay, Frodan, how do you like the decks, like the meta so far? Like, did you expect it? Did you expect it?
I expected Rogue from what you are. What I wasn't expecting was Cthulhu Druid. That surprised me significantly because I think a lot of players have fallen in love with the Yogg Druid, or maybe not in love with the Yogg itself, but the token Druid approach of it. They feel like it's too good of a deck not to bring, and you chose to bring Cthulhu Druid. Why is that?
Now he switched around. Okay, let's do it.
Oh, okay.
The Cartoon Druid, yeah, it is pretty good. Like, I think it lost against Sue because I did one misstep, like the swipe, but I think it should have been one. I think it's just nice. It's decent against the Dragon Warriors, against the Suloks, and does also well against the Druids in Mirror as well. I think it's a fine pick. Also, like, you have to consider, like, you have a really draining Swiss stage, so it's like the whole day, and Cartoon Druid is a bit easier to play.
No, it's reasonable.
I like
that.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
It took me off guard, so I wasn't expecting that.
That's something I talk with Impact and Green Sheep as well. Like, you have to really think about fatigue, like mental fatigue during the tournament.
Yeah.
And as obviously like a rogue specialist, everyone pins you out as. Is there? How do you feel that rogue actually is in the meta at the moment? Like, do you think it's a deck you would just bring because you enjoy it and you're really good at it, or do you still bring it because you believe it's in a good spot in itself?
I mean, the way I was building my lineup, it kind of fit in the rogue. You just have to tack it a bit differently. It does definitely fit. I think it's definitely one of the stronger decks, especially with the Shaman getting weaker because of the popularity of Dragon Warrior. So I think, yeah, it's in a decent spot. The only thing with Rogue that is really there, I think it's definitely one of the hardest decks out there to play, and you get punished for one single misstep. You'll just lose.
You've countered that by bringing Cthulhu Druid, though, so it's fine. You've got one deck that's going to tax you quite heavily, and then you've got one deck that you can relax a bit more.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
And like, how do you feel about this metagame? Because you're never bringing like normal decks. You always find something different, and it actually works out for you. Do you think this lineup, at the moment you're 3-0 in this tournament?
Yeah.
So do you think this lineup is going to carry you as well again?
I mean, the lineup never just carries me. It's just, I guess it's the lineup and the plays and staying mental fit.
Yeah, your lineup carries you, JJ.
Yeah.
It's all about the lineup.
It's not what the hell you play card-wise.
It's all lame, just like getting carried by the lineup.
All right, I just wanted to like underline the importance of the lineup.
The importance of the lineup, yeah. Of course, very important. Like, deck building is underrated amongst the pros. People bring the most standard decks, and they're like, man, I lost that coin flip. How did I lose? Yeah, it is like this. You play Dragon Warrior against Dragon Warrior. Who gets the Vorax? Play Druid against Druid. Who gets the Wild Growth? It is not a joke. Like, if you don't want to play like that, don't bring these decks.
Yeah, and don't complain because you don't innovate and you don't think outside the box. There are cards and stuff to counter certain things, and I like that it's working out. I love that it's working out for you, man. 3-0 currently. Yeah,
congratulations again, JJ. We'll let you go and prep for your next match, but I believe we do have Crane versus Fallen on its way now, as the match is midway through, so we're going to be